screen then? Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So, welcome everyone for the webinar on the DNA of Agile and high-performing organization by Aeqila, together with hippies and La French Tech, Indonesia. Just a little bit about myself, even though you're not here for this. My name is Oussama Labib. You can call me Ous. I'm the CEO, founder of Aeqila. We're a Singapore-based startup that helps organizations build agile and high-performing teams at scale. We've been doing that with organizations in Asia, in Europe, started to work with some companies in North America. And everything that we are doing, our methodology and approach is research-based. We have a research partner. And today we will be sharing with you some of the learning insights that we had from working with such organization, and trying to understand the difference between those organizations that manage to actually achieve a higher level of performance and agility compared to those who don't. I guess one of the reasons we are all here today is because we all know that we are living in an unpredictable and volatile environment. This is one of the big buzzwords that exists, that I'm sure you have heard. VUCA environment that puts a lot of pressure to organizations to compete and remain leader in their industry. And the real question behind all of this, and what brought you here today for this webinar, is what is the reason why some companies actually manage to perform better than others? And by perform better, we mean achieve a higher level of performance and becoming agile in practice. And why does it matter to become agile and high performing? Because we know that the benefits for those organizations that actually become agile are enormous. They will find some commercial benefits, workforce related benefits, as well as organizational benefits. If you look at the latest reports from the Business Agility Institute, you will find that those companies that actually achieve a higher level of performance, as well as become agile, will, for instance, be able to bring the product faster to the market, have a higher level of employee satisfaction, be more adaptable to the changes in the environment, and of course have higher productivity. And this is why every organization today is trying to become a little bit more agile. Now the question behind all of this is what's the magic pill? What makes some organization like Spotify, for instance, who has been a pioneer in agile ways of working, what is the magic pill behind this? Well, I have a good news and a bad news. The bad news is that I do not think that there is a magic pill in the marketplace. What we have, though, is a methodology, experience, tools that can allow us to help build agile and high-performing teams at scale. And if you're able to implement those practices, those methodologies within your organization, you will be able to reap the benefits of a higher performance. And this is what we will be exploring today, starting by asking ourselves this first question: where do we want to go? And that means, what are the characteristics and trademarks of agile and high-performing teams? The second question, once we understand exactly what is an agile and high-performing teams and organization, is how do we get there? What is the usual journey that organizations need to take so that it can become agile and high-performing in practice? And we'll share some of the business cases and examples, including how we have been able to do that and work together with Spotify in the Asian market. Trying to make sense of all of this for you. I know some of you are consultants, some of you are CEO working in your own companies. The key question that must be at the back of your head, most probably, and this is what we find when we work with our clients, is how do we create the right environment for agile and high-performing teams to thrive? How can we accelerate the process and the journey? And of course, how can we make sure that we don't leave some employees and people behind, but everyone is engaged throughout the entire journey? And those are some of the questions that we will try to answer today. But let's start with some definition, and maybe you can let me know in the chat, what is your understanding of an agile and high-performing organization? How would you define it? If you want to let me know very quickly in the chat, that would be great to kick off the conversation. All right, we start to have some answer. Just feel free to let us know. We see the ability to pivot is definitely one of it. And I think before we go a little bit further, it's important to look at some definition. And starting with what is a DNA? If you look at the actual definition of a DNA in the dictionary, it is the molecule inside cells that contain genetic information responsible for the development and function of an organism. And if we truly want to discover and uncover what are the characteristics of an agile and high-performing team and what is the DNA of agile and high-performing teams, we need to look at these two elements: the development, meaning what is the journey towards becoming a high-performing organization, and the function, which is how does an agile and high-performing organization look like and how does it operate. And it is definitely what I'm seeing in the chat. The ability to scale up fast and overcome obstacles, the ability to be quick in the decision making, planning, and execution. Let's start with this. What exactly is an agile and high performing organization? What does it look like? This is coming from one of the latest McKinsey reports that basically tries to explain the difference between agile organization or the organization that we're seeing today that are agile, that you can see on the right hand side, and the one that are a little bit more older or traditional on the left hand side. And the main difference is the comparison between, is your organization working as a machine or as an organism? A traditional company will have a very top-down approach, a lot of bureaucracy. You will see teams working in silos. And this is a little bit on the opposite of what is an agile organization. In an agile organization, you will see, as you were saying in the chat, the ability to implement very quick changes, the ability to allocate resources based on the needs of the organization, a leadership that doesn't stay with one person, but that is shared across everyone within the team, clear accountability around the outcome, and a strong focus on action and not just planning. And there are actually 5 trademarks that corresponds to agile and high performing organization. And as you're thinking about your own organization, maybe you can start to reflect about how would your organization fare towards those 5 trademarks. But what we see is that agile and high performing organization will be able to have those 5 elements. A clear North Star, so mission, purpose, that is embedded across the entire organization. Not just embodied, but it means that it's clearly communicated and shared by every single employee in the organization. Number 2 is a network of empowered team. And there are 2 words here that are important. Number 1 is a network, meaning that the teams do not work in silo, but you are building almost communities of practice and creating synergies between all of the different teams. The second word that is extremely important here is the word empowered, meaning that the teams have the ability to make decisions on their scope of work, and the leadership is really shared within the team. Definitely the rapid decision making and the learning cycle. This is where you will see things that are related to Scrum, Kanban methodology, for instance. What is really behind this is your ability as an organization, as a team, to make very, very quick decision, shift, learn from it, and apply the learnings the next time you work on a new project. A dynamic people model that ignites passion, meaning that everyone needs to be fully engaged within the culture and the company culture. And finally, some technology that can enable you to make those effective decisions. I'm going a little bit faster on this, especially because of the time that we have. I'll be more than happy to dive deeper in each of these 5 elements. But now that we understand a little bit what are the 5 characteristics of an agile and high-performing team organization, the question becomes, how do we get there? And what is the usual journey towards becoming agile and high-performing? What we know, and this is coming from a research partner, is that these 5 elements will be representative of what we call a stage 4 team. But not all organizations and teams have the ability to get there. It's a very tumultuous journey. And you can see that almost 30% of organizations and teams will be stuck on stage 2. What are those 4 stages of team development and organizational development? It means that necessarily your organization will have to go through these 4 stages. The first one, dependency and inclusion, is when, for instance, in an organization, there is a high dependency around the leader. The leader or the CEO is the one making all of the decisions. This would be very normal, for instance, for a startup, but as you scale up, as the organization becomes a little bit bigger, you need to be able to delegate a little bit the decision-making process. When you have a stage one team, for instance, what is very important is to work with the organization, with your team members, with your leaders around defining clear goals, the structure, and really creating a psychological safe environment so that everyone feels that they belong within the organization. If you're able to do this, you will be able to move the organization and the team towards what we call stage two of counter-dependency and fighting. This is when people start to disagree with each other, disagree with the team leader, disagree with the leader or the CEO of the organization, for instance. They are asking questions, for instance, about, is it the right way of doing things? Is there another way that we could look at? And you will see kind of disagreement and conflict starting to appear within the organization and the team. This is actually a great thing because it means that you're no longer in stage one, but you are moving towards stage two. Now, this can be very tiring and exhausting for a lot of the team members and a lot of the leaders. So it's very important that if your organization or team is in stage two, you work with them to make sure that the conflict or the disagreement is really based on the work or the task at hand and not based on the individual, and that you help team members to solve conflicts by developing shared values, shared goals, roles, and structure. If you're able to do this, your organization, your team will be able to move towards stage three, where you will start to see a little bit more trust and structure appearing. Differences are accepted. This is where you can really leverage the diversity of your team. There's clear decision-making process, clear goals, clear roles. Then the communication within the team is way more flexible and task-oriented. If you see yourself, your team or your organization being in stage three, this is where it's very important that you start consolidating the good relationship. This is where you can start pushing the team members and the leaders, for instance, start to give feedback to each other. And that will allow you to become a stage four organization where you will start to really reap the benefits of having a higher level of performance and maturity, as well as becoming agile in practice. And why is that important? Because we see that the only way you can truly be agile in practice is if you are allowing your organization and your team to smoothly go through these 3-4 stages of team development. A lot of time we work with clients that have organization or teams in stage one or stage two and are expecting everyone to be fully agile, which actually wouldn't work. It's very easy to understand how, for instance, with no clear goal or no psychologically safe environment, you wouldn't be able to change your strategy and tactics as you go along. And so one of the questions behind all of this becomes, then what usually gets in the way of agility and high performance? What we see is that very often organizations will start an agile transformation journey. They are very clear about what they're expecting of it. They want increased revenue, business profitability, customer satisfaction, team autonomy, speed to market. And the answer to that is to say, okay, let's invest in tools and processes. And you see teams starting to work with Mural, Scrum and Kanban, retrospectives, and daily stand-up documentation. But that is not enough. And that's why if you look at one of these Capgemini report, you will find that even though 90% of the organization today are saying that they're practicing Agile to some degrees, only 20% have achieved a higher level of competency with Agile ways of working. And it means that when 70% of the investment is basically thrown out of the window. And what really gets in the way here is not just the processes and the tools, but the culture and the mindset. And if you really want to help your organization, then it is important that you don't just support your teams, your employees, your leaders with the right processes and tools, but really define what exactly are the behaviors from your employees, from your team, from your leaders that you are expecting. What are those behaviors of success? And if you want to make the journey successful for yourself, depending on where you are on the journey, here are 5 things that we have found very, very useful when we work with some of our clients. Number one, be extremely intentional. The organization that actually become agile and high performing in practice want to have a clear plan on how they want to go ahead and do it, and they really make it a high priority within the agenda. Number two, they are data-driven organization. They use data to one, diagnose where the team is and what are the organization needs, as well as measuring the process over time. 3, and this one is one of the biggest gaps that we find in almost all of the organizations that we work with, is really leveraging the idea of the collective intelligence and the group. The organizations that are successful don't just work with the leaders as individual or the team members as individual, but really focus on group and team development to drive the collective intelligence. As we said earlier, they're focusing on behaviors and mindsets, and they're making sure that the entire journey is fun and engaging for everyone. Just to finish, this is what we've been able to do with some of the customers that you can see here, especially Spotify, Microsoft, or Aeqila in the Southeast Asian region. I will share with you some of the methodology and approach and how we've been able to do this, and I know there will be a lot of nuggets and insights for you. Knowing that this kind of approach can work for any type of teams. Agile is not just reserved for software development or engineering teams, but any organization, any team that just want to improve the level of performance and become agile can actually use those approach and methodology. The way we do it is we have different tools that allow us to work with the teams and the organization. We are using it team assessments, but you can find some online as well. And that's really the starting point to diagnose where is your organization right now in terms of the different stages of team maturity. Then we're working with teams. We try not to work too often on a one-off, but try to engage them on a longer period of time to create behavior change. And we also have this simulation called Mickey Allen that allows teams to practice and experience the behaviors of agile and high-performing team. Whether you use Mickey Allen or anything else, the real value here is to allow teams to practice in a safe environment what are the behaviors of agile and high-performing teams. Because if you really think about it, a lot of the people within your organization might never have been part of a high-performing team. And unless you really allow them to experience what it looks like, they will never be able to do that in practice. So with all of those tools, when we work with our clients, we work and engage with them, for instance, over 3 to 6 months, where we can put a plan that starts with a clear diagnostic with the team assessments. Based on the diagnostic, we can personalize the team journey, make sure it's fun and engaging with a different simulation, and really help the team through team coaching intervention to identify what exactly the team needs to work on and apply it in the everyday ways of working. This is what we've been able to do, for instance, with an organization like Skyline Communication, which is a telecommunication company based out of Belgium. They started their agile transformation journey a couple of years ago, but they realized that even though they had, well, all of the different documentation tools, processes in place, the squads were actually not becoming agile in practice. And by working with us, it allowed us to really define the specific needs of all the team, measure the team performance, and allow for everyone to create conversation around what exactly do we need to work on and what exactly would an agile and high-performing teams work within our environment. This is the same approach that we have done as well with Spotify, where we work with multiple teams in the region. Again, starting with a clear diagnostic and measurement of success at the beginning, tailor-made development for all of the teams that we engaged, making sure that everyone is engaged and have fun throughout the entire journey. And of course, helping the team and the team members to apply and reflect the learnings in the everyday ways of working to improve their performance. So if you're interested in this, there are 3 ways we can potentially help your organization. The starting point is to know where you are, and you might have some ideas. It would be great that you talk to some other people in your organization, but really understanding where are you in the process between stage 1 to stage 4 high performance and agility is one of the key elements to knowing exactly what your organization needs. So you can find things online. If you're interested to diagnose and measure exactly what is your current stage of performance and agility, we can help you with this. The second thing is be intentional and create a plan around how you're going to engage your team, the team leaders and team members on this journey. And finally, make sure that everyone is really engaged and have fun throughout the journey so that they can help your organization achieve a higher level of performance. I think we have a few more minutes. I'll be more than happy to take some of the questions, feedback, insights that you might have, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, Ous, one from my side, if you don't mind. You know, so it seems that you have experience in different parts of the world, right? I mean, Mickey Island and the whole process has been deployed in 16 countries, if I remember well. But here in Asia, you know, one of the specificity, I mean, people in Europe tend to stay longer in an organization than in a team, right? So in the Asian context, you know, you have team members, I will say, pretty often. So how do you know, individuals, so you have, I understand the fact that, you know, you need to go through a different stages, right? And one is a fight, you know, confrontation and so on. And when you have a new joiner, right? How is it, you know, adapting to the high performing culture, or is it putting the average performance down again, or, you know, if you don't mind to share?
Yes, from a research perspective, what we know is that whenever the team goal changes, the team environment changes, or one of the team member changes, the team will naturally go back to being a stage 1 team. The difference being that if the team leader and the team member have knowledge about what needs to be done to get back to stage 2, 3, and 4, they will be able to do that faster versus a team that is not clear about what needs to be done and will stay stuck in stage 1 and stage 2. So by actually working with your team and sharing all of these 4 stages of team development, for instance, and bringing the competence of your team leaders and team members a little bit higher, it allows you to ensure that next time a new team member joins, there's a reorganization in the organization, for instance. Instead of taking 18 months to get back to a stage 2 or stage 4 team, you'll be able to do this in 6 to 8 months. And reap the productivity benefits of this, for instance, Jerome.
Thank you.
I have a question, or actually 2 questions, if that's possible. Yes, thank you, it was really, really interesting. So as you mentioned, obviously the culture and the leadership is extremely important to have all this working. Now, how much can we expect a leader in a culture to change to be able to adapt that? How quickly does it go? And what are usually the tools that you use? Because, you know, it's usually quite difficult to change the personality of the founder. And the second question is actually quite related. Some of the examples that you gave were more Western companies, or, you know, like tech and US. So where this culture is a little more accepted and current. I guess that, so, you know, we can say that in Asia, that's not necessarily the case. We still have cultures in organizations that are very top down, and where leaders are naturally much more control, you know, and command type, where, and obviously that's not going to work here. So how do we cope with all this?
Okay.
Yeah. Is that even possible? You know, it's like, is that even possible when a company is in that setup? Is it possible to say, okay, we can become an agile company?
Okay. So yes, quite a few questions, and if I take it one by one, I think the most important is yes, this research and methodology can be applied to kind of any organization, any team, whether it's in Europe, Asia, or North America. And again, there are examples here in Asia where organizations have been able to become agile and a little bit more high performing than others. If I take your first question, which is, if I understand correctly, how much can we expect of a leader to change the entire organizational culture? I would say if it's done in isolation, not so much. What you can do, though, is make sure that you provide the right environment for your own team and your team member to thrive. Will that change the entire organizational culture? Most probably not. And that's why there's a difference between I'm trying to improve my team performance, and I'm trying to create a high-performing organization at scale. And if you're trying to do this, there are some elements that needs to be done on a top-down level, so that you create the environment for those kind of stage 3 and stage 4 teams to thrive. And only if you're able to do this, both organizationally, but also helping the teams in themselves, then you will be able to really see your organization move. Whenever we have this question from leaders, we say that, it doesn't mean that you can hide behind kind of excuses that there's nothing I can do within my own team and within or with the people that I work with. That there's definitely some things that can be done. The second part of your question was, how does it fit within the, let's say, the Asian context? Even though those were kind of a Western company, if you take Spotify, for instance, most of the teams at Spotify were made of people sitting in India, Korea, Singapore, for instance. So we had a lot of diversity, and I know you're familiar with this. Asian culture doesn't actually really exist. The Korean culture is different from an Indian culture, is different from a Singaporean culture. So just the ability to talk about what exactly do we expect from each other, what exactly the norms, and what do we define as the ways of working for our own kind of teams, just allow them to move forwards throughout the 4 stages of team development. One of the biggest insights from putting these 4 stages of team development with almost anyone in Asia is the ability to kind of normalize stage 2 of conflict and disagreements. In some countries in Asia, it's something that is very scary. I don't want to engage into different point of view with my boss, because my boss knows best, and I'm expecting him or her to tell me. Just normalizing the fact that if you have such conversation, it's actually a great point. Now let's talk about how we can make sure that those conversations can turn productive and healthy for the team. Is already a very big movement forward for a lot of teams and team members in Asia, for instance. And we've worked with a lot of teams in stage 1 and stage 2 that just by doing this and helping them to create this environment that is psychologically safe for everyone to disagree, not because of who you are as an individual, but because of we have different point of view on what we need to work on, allows the team to get to stage 3 and get a little bit a higher level of team performance and productivity, if that answered the question.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe one more question, but thank you, Anne. One testimony on that, as you maybe saw before, IPs use this solution for the onboarding, and all employees are, Malaysian, Asian, Chinese, right? And indeed, what I saw, right, is we use a game and avatar, and it's the avatar in the game that taking decisions somehow. Obviously, you are the avatar, right? But depersonating a bit the conflict and the decision-making process, where you are not the boss in this game, you are one of the team member, and actually it was very interesting the way that it broke the the usual hierarchical way of doing things, right? Because it was avatar and in a game based experience. So yeah, it was interesting to see these points. And
I see indeed the challenge of getting people to be comfortable being empowered, which is not easy indeed in all culture, in all companies. But there's also the CEO, right? The leadership that, and I'm sure you've had the case of leaders that came to you and say, I would like to have an agile company because I want the benefits of an agile company, but I don't want to let go of my control. And so that's more that part that I'm like, okay, how do you overcome that?
So no, that's a very good point. And usually when we talk with kind of C-level executive or it can be any team leader, we try to put this in perspective. Having a very kind of delegative, agile, empowering way of working is actually not always efficient. If you have a stage 1 team and you're trying to delegate, you will ask questions to your team members and you will have a complete dead silence in the room because I don't know you enough, I don't know the other. So this is not what I expect from you as a team member. What I expect from you is to tell me right now, what is it that we're working on and what are the expectations? So by putting things in perspective, we tell them that, look, it doesn't mean this is who you need to be right now. And actually, if you want to hone your leadership style, one thing that is even more interesting to look at is, what is the right leadership style to have based on your stage of your team performance and team maturity level. So if you have a stage 1 team, it's actually okay to be a little bit more directive. This is what the team members need. This is what the organization needs from you. Now, as your team evolves in terms of competence, you can't do this because you will hinder the team performance. So then suddenly you need to learn on how you can take a step back, but that only happens because you see more accountability and competence from the team members. And that becomes a really dynamic and systemic thing where everything happens together. It's not just the team leader, it's not just the team member. Here again, putting things in perspective around what's the movement we're trying to create, where do you want to be in 6 months, rather than where you are right now, kind of helps to put those things in perspective.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I know we are slightly over the 30 minutes, but any other question, feedback, insight that you might have?
Well, from my side, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Maybe just one question. You have been working across different industries, and did you spot any type of company size, characteristic, or even situation within a business cycle, right, in the middle of a transformation or whatever, which is more favorable, I would say, or let's say make it the best candidate for entering this journey? My point is that I guess that depending on the size of the company, depending on the maturity or the age of the company or the business situation, your approach might be, well, even if you have a methodology different, and maybe you spot some characteristic that tells you, okay, this one is a very good candidate.
Yes, I think it's a really, really big question. There are definitely some challenges that are inherent to the typology of companies that we work with. If you work with a scale-up, a company that has only existed for 5 to 7 years, there's not a lot of legacy in there. So it's a little bit easier to kind of change how the organization work and set a new direction versus working with very traditional company where, this is how we've been working for the last 30 years now. How are you going to change it? It's a big, it can be a big challenge. It depends really whether you're trying to look at it from a kind of team perspective or organizational perspective. But what we found is, and it's going to sound a little bit kind of a kind of guru thing to say, but one of the starting point is really intentionality and the commitment from what we call either the team leader or the organization. Because as Anne say, a lot of people say this is what we want, and when they really understand what needs to be done, then actually this is not really what we want, or we're not willing to invest time and effort and money. But the moment you actually start to be intentional around this and scale these ways of working within the organization, you will start to see the results. And it can be done across any industry, whether you're in tech or engineering or consulting company. The real question is, how committed are you to making it happen for you, for your team, and for your team members? And if you are, then there's definitely some benefits that you will get. Where it gets really kind of customized is in the type of conversation we have. We don't coach the team on the same topics, whether it's automobile company or tech company, but the methodology, the approach is really cutting across all sectors, Julien.
Thank you.
Any other question, ladies and gentlemen?
For Ous, guys? Anyway, obviously, I will share with you, a follow-up email with Ous details, and the good news is, somehow it's the first of triptych, right? It's the episode 1 that Ous, and thank you very much. Thank you all of you for attending. Thank you very much, Ous, for sharing everything. But it's one of the 3 episodes that Ous will lead, right? So we will have the occasion to maybe dig more into the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 Please also share your feedback, right, with a French tech group or anyone you know in the French tech in Indonesia. Ous is not based in Indonesia, he's in Singapore, but he's obviously, you know, agnostic. His discipline is different country by country, but he's somehow able to facilitate everywhere. So he will treat other topics. If you have any, you know, specific thing, please let me know. I guess you guys have my details. And we will coordinate with Ous for the second session, most probably going to be in 1 month. In between, we're going to have another topic we will address. And the same, right? So if you have anything HR related, Indonesia, or, you know, a bit more globally, you want to address, you want us to try to find an expert to talk about, please let us know, right? It will be very much appreciated. Okay. And for now, and for myself, one last time, thank you very much, Ous, before you're flying off from France, right? So thank you for accommodating. We rushed a bit the thing, but yeah, thank you for that. Have a very safe trip back to Europe.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you, Jerome, and the French Tech, Indonesia, and hippies.
Thank you. Have a safe
Thank you.
travel.